Well, I classify myself as a social worker. Incidentally, I'm chairman of the Birmingham Central Mosque, and it's one of my obligations under the company law, according to the Articles of Association. I have to look after the interests of the Muslim, and being a Muslim, I'm also obliged to look after the interests of the wider community, because that's part of the religious commitment. So it is in that context that I do whatever I can. Al-Muhajiroun and Hizb ut-Tahrir, they are just two sides of the same coin. I think it may be just for strategical reason that they have split into two, but they have got the same ideology, same methodology. And I came into contact with them at the time of Bosnia, when Bosnia was attacked and there was conflict going on. And I had a meeting here in this hall, which was attended by citizens of this city, mostly non-Muslim, of all kind of persuasion. And what amazed me is that some young people barged into the hall and said, "You are doing this against Islam. You have got non-Muslims in the mosque, and that is forbidden." And I have never come across this opinion before in my life. And I was surprised that these people who are supposed to be working for Islam are presenting a picture of Islam which is absolutely wrong. And it can only be presented if you want to put Muslim people away from Islam. From that experience, my perception was that this must be a group of people who intend to present a picture of Islam which is unacceptable to the Western mind. Now, on that premise, I invited them to, because I wanted to know more. That was my perception, but I could have been wrong. I invited them to come and have a discussion. They promised and they never turned up. It happened 2 or 3 times, and then I was invited when, what is the name of that gentleman who was the head of Hizb ut-Tahrir at that time, who is now in Beirut, Lebanon. I was once invited to a meeting where Omar Bakri was present. So actually it was a meeting arranged for me to talk to Omar Bakri because his juniors did not feel qualified to talk to me. I spoke to him. I had one sitting, and I pointed the error of his opinion. And then there was a second meeting was arranged, and he never turned up.
So isn't it really just a difference of ideology? Surely you're interpreting the Quran in one way, and they're interpreting the Quran in a different way.
The thing is, there is no way they can interpret the Quran the way they are interpreting. That is a problem. Because I have not studied Quran because of an emotional reason. I was an agnostic in my formative years. I have studied because I became convinced that there is a God who has created this, who is the lawgiver. Then it was just a choice to make between Hinduism, Sikhism, Christianity and Islam. It was, to me, it was the same, different sides of the same coin. I opted for Islam because I agreed with it more than anything else. So, having read Quran with that kind of approach, I could not understand how anybody could present this, because this was an emotional presentation of the Quran. There was no justification. If you are ignorant, then you can sell this story. If you're not ignorant, you couldn't sell it to anybody. And that's what these people were doing. Democracy is forbidden, and non-Muslims should not be allowed in. Now they didn't know them. In Prophet's time, a delegation of Christians came to the mosque, 60 people, headed by an archbishop. They stayed for 1 week in the mosque. They said their prayers in the mosque. And I checked with the Roman Catholic bishop here as to how many prayers were they supposed to perform in a day at that time and he said about 3 or 5. So that means Muslims were saying their 5-time prayer, Christians were saying their prayers at the same time, and as Protestantism was not there at that time, they must have imagery. So they must have been allowed to use their imagery in performing their prayer. So how could any Muslim say that they are forbidden? And there's a whole chapter in the Quran devoted to that incident, when these people came and stayed in the Prophet's mosque. So that is why I say there's no way you can present another picture, because it is there in black and white.
So where do you think these people are coming from, the Al-Muhajiroun?
Then I further studied Omar Bakri, and what is not well known, at one time he was appointed on the Race Relations Commission Board. And then this news I read myself in the Times, and then suddenly it was removed. There's no trace left of it.
Oh, from the internet?
I asked people to try to look in the internet when it was, but nobody had come with a finding. So I think this has just been erased. Then, further thinking, who would be interested in creating this picture of Muslim, unless it is somebody who has already said the rules of the games have changed. So we can tell lies, we can do anything as long as it serves our political purpose. So I concluded, as a deduction from that premise, that they must have link with organizations or representatives of that political system which is interested in creating this impression amongst non-Muslims.
Because they do seem to have a lot more of a profile in the national press than, you know, sort of their rate of numbers would suggest.
Yeah. The other thing, was that they were saying things which, if I said, I would be behind bars or be questioned. But they were having comfortable lives.
What sort of things?
Abu Hamza was saying these things, and I was making such a noise that why this person is not being charged under the Terrorism Act. Because once upon a time he said, when there was an attack on an American ship near Aden, he boasted that he got the facts about what is going to happen before it happened. Now, by his own admission, he had links with terrorists. Why the government was not charging him?
Well, now eventually it has.
Eventually. First of all, they charged him under the Immigration Act. Now they know, as I know, under the Immigration Act, the case can drag on for. I think it was because of the noise I created, because I was talking to MPs, I was talking to leaders of the council as to why this person is not being. They did charge him under the Terrorism Act. I was still suspicious. I tried to find out what class he was given, what kind of circumstances he was living in. I approached through a friend of mine, Brian Garish. He wrote to the prison authorities for information about them, and they refused. Then, God bless Daily Mail, it had a story that Abu Hamza was living a comfortable life in prison. He was given a computer costing £1,000, and he had his toenails attended to for £1,500. And I said to myself, that's a good way of treating a terrorist. If you compare it with people who are not with you, say in Guantanamo Bay or in Birmingham, they have terrible lives. They are tortured, and if they are women, they are raped. And here this man, who is a terrorist, charged under the terrorist law, convicted under the terrorism law, having a good life. And we are not allowed to see him.
So, as a Muslim, yourself, isn't it really a bit dangerous for you to go criticising other Muslims?
It is dangerous, not as far as other Muslims are concerned. I think it is dangerous with the secret services. And I say, for example, if Dr. Kelly can disappear under mysterious circumstances, I could disappear too. And there have been 5 incidents in my life. I was invited by a Christian charity to go to Afghanistan to examine their work. And I said yes. They were going to pay my fare, and I said, okay, I will go, along with the Bishop of Birmingham. And I kept on ringing them, making inquiries. And one day I rang and I was told that the person who was my contact was not free because there was an MI5 officer who was visiting him at that time. Now that made me more suspicious. Then I studied the area where I was supposed to go. That was the most lawless area, where there have been incidents of attacks and people being killed. So I thought it was prudent for me not to go. But I offered them the Imam, who is a Pashtun, and I thought he was better qualified for me as opposed to me, because he could speak the language of the people, he could understand, he could see their work much better, and he would bring back a better report than I could bring. He was not accepted. He had an interview, but he was dropped out. So that was one suspicious event in my life. Then I had an armed robbery. And the people did not seem to be interested in money or anything. The leader of the gang was on the phone all the time, as if he was giving them time to time picture of what was happening. I was tied up. I had this sticky tape on my mouth.